Manchester United spent all summer targeting Carlos Baleba to inject energy, steel and thrust into a midfield running on empty. They were ready to drop 100 million quid, but Brighton wanted 115, so deal off. But Casemiro is not going to last forever, Kobbie Mainoo's out of form and favour, and Ruben Amorim's 3-4-3 system demands legs in the middle that the Reds simply do not have. From defensive transitions and pressing efficiencies to progressive passes and ball carries, their midfield metrics are miles behind their Prem rivals. So with Brighton's demands only set to increase during the January transfer window, where do United find the Baleba clone they so desperately need without paying a Premier League premium?
Enter Sevilla star Lucien Agoume, a statistical and tactical doppelganger of the Brighton man who's better than United's current crop and available for a fraction of the cost.
Nice one, Dino, but before we dive into the details, hit me with Agoume's essentials. You've got 20 seconds, let's have them.
Lucien Jefferson Agoume is 23. He was born in February 2002 in Cameroon. He's 6'2", came through the youth academy at Sochaux, where he made his debut aged 16. Left for Inter Milan a year later, where loan spells at Spezia, Brest and Troyes followed, before his $7 million move to Sevilla in 2024. He's played for France at every age group from under 16s, but hasn't yet got a senior cap. His agent is Dibril Niang, the man who represents William Saliba. Now you've met Lucien Pugh, so tell me why Manchester United need him.
Let's talk ball winning. Last season, Agoume was La Liga's 4th highest ranking midfielder for interceptions with 1.74 per 90 minutes, while Baleba averaged just 1.62. And actually, Agoume would have been second in the entire Prem last year, behind Rodrigo Bentancur at your Tottenham, Dino. So how important would that be at United?
Desperately. Amorim plays a high-intensity 3-4-3, but that midfield two is often outnumbered and has a huge amount of ground to cover. So to put Agoume's 1.74 in context, United's best interceptor last season was Ugarte at 1.36, and this season it's Ugarte again with 1.72 per 90. And it's worth noting Agoume's interceptions have dropped slightly to 1.21 this season, but he's started just 11 of Sevilla's 16 league games due to a shoulder injury. So even in a disrupted campaign, he's putting up numbers that would eclipse United's current options.
So why is that tactically important, Dino? Show me on the board.
Well, we know that United's set up in that 3-4-3 formation. Lots of people will call that the 3-4-2-1 formation, but these guys are the ones that are important to what the knock-on effect is with these two. So if we push a striker forward, these two inverted forwards, 8s or 10s, whatever we normally call them on tactics, go into there, which means you push your wing-backs on to try and get a front 5 line there. And we know that Bruno Fernandes likes to roam and join that attack. So he will then go and push up into that shape, and look what that leaves. One man in midfield to cover an enormous amount of space. So even if your back three is pressing up where they should be and centre-backs are pushing into these areas, this midfielder here has to cover this ground to get across into these spaces when they lose possession and when other teams counter-attack. So high energy, ball-winning midfield player, absolutely key. And Casemiro is not getting any younger.
But Agoume's not just reading the game and nicking passes, he's robbing opponents when they've got the ball at their feet too. If you need the ball back, Lucien is your man. Last season, he averaged 2.97 tackles per 90 minutes, which was the 5th highest in La Liga, and that would have put him 12th among all Premier League midfielders last season, above Baleba, whose average has actually decreased from 2.7 to 1.89 this season, but interestingly, he would have been below Ugarte and Casemiro.
Yes, but that's a playing style symptom rather than an indicator that Casemiro and Ugarte are much better tacklers.
All right, Dino, well, tell us about that, because United were the highest tackling team in the Premier League last year. They have actually, to be fair, dropped to 9th this year, but given they finished 15th in the table in May, fans could be forgiven for assuming that being the highest tacklers in the league isn't a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely, but that depends on where you have possession, where you lose possession, and then where you're trying to win possession back. So last season, they weren't as good a team. They're giving the ball away much more often, so they made lots of tackles in this midfield area. Whereas this season, because they're pressing much higher up the field, their front three is much higher, and we push them on. If you have Amad Diallo, you have Mbeumo, you have Cunha, you're pushing them on. This area here is much bigger for these players to cover. So they're perhaps not going man v man and making those tackles as often. So more interceptions, less tackles in that scenario.
Okay, so a high tackling rate is not necessarily a bad thing, and we know Agoume is a master at it. Plus, he has the engine to cover the ground that Amorim's system needs. So explain how having him in the team, Dino, instead of Casemiro, will improve United tactically.
Yeah, so it goes back to that thing of pushing Bruno on. So if Bruno Fernandes is the man you want to be joining the attack, and then obviously you push your wing-backs on, if you've got the engine room here, where United's centre-backs this season have very much have to jump out of their positions to cover these areas here. So you've had Lenny Yoro, De Ligt, you've had Luke Shaw jumping out of their positions when a team is counter-attacking to come and attack these areas to block that off. That often leaves them open in these wing areas to balls that go over the top. So if you have your centre-backs holding their position because you've got a runner in here who's going to cover this side when the ball comes over here, or cover that side when the ball goes over there, think Rodri for Manchester City in this scenario, then that's where the man with the engine is key.
Right, now I can hear the comments already. Oh, he plays in Spain, La Liga's too slow, he'll never adapt to the Premier League. Well, I've got two words for you. Rodri, Zubimendi. Many Gooners will tell you that Martin Zubimendi is the unsung hero in Arsenal's title charge this season. Now, they paid Real Sociedad £51 million for him in the summer, but Agoume actually outperformed him for tackles and interceptions in La Liga last season. Zubimendi's average for both metrics have dropped slightly in the Prem, but that's mainly because Arsenal just have more of the ball than Sociedad, so he doesn't have as many chances to win it back.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily something Agoume would find at Manchester United, given Amorim is often happy to concede possession, as we've shown often on Tactics Exposed.
Yes, we have, Dino. Rodri, as well, also averaged only slightly more tackles and interceptions in his last La Liga season before joining Man City, and he went on to win the Ballon d'Or, so that is good enough for me. In short, holding midfielders coming from Spain to the Prem, it works.
Yeah, but at Manchester United, and especially in Amorim's 3-4-3, you can't just be a destroyer. Midfielders must be good on the ball, and fortunately, he is.
Exactly that. You know, fans actually call him, Dino, the Swiss Army knife, because he can do absolutely everything. And his stats this season are proper Mr. Kipling. That's exceedingly good, by the way, when compared to Baleba and United's midfield output. So, Agoume is outperforming Baleba and Casemiro on 3 of the 4 key ball carrying metrics. That's progressive carries, progressive passes and passes into the final third. Now, you'll see his lowest ranked 4 successful dribbles, but that shoulder injury and a change in tactical approach under new Sevilla boss Matías Almeida has contributed to a 68% drop from last season when he was eclipsing Baleba and Casemiro, plus his progressive carries have also dropped by about 35%, and that's just basically because Almeida wants him passing the ball more than carrying it, but his stats last season show that he can run with the ball if he needs to. So how do Manchester United currently progress the ball, and how would having Agoume in their team impact that?
Yeah, where they've got much better this season and where it's developed under Amorim is the way that they play out. So they've been dropping the centre-backs wide, and one of the midfield players, Casemiro, but this would be Agoume, drops into this position here so they have a shape to play out. And often this player is the bounce pass player. So he wants to join the wing-backs in, and it comes out from the goalkeeper to be played into a wing-back, to be bounced into a midfielder, to go forwards again from there. So those direct passes into the feet of Mbeumo, into the feet of Šeško or Cunha is going to be absolutely key from a player who plays in that position.
Oh, that makes sense how they pass the ball forward, and Agoume would improve them on that basis. How much does Amorim require his central midfield players to run with the ball and carry it forward?
Yeah, well, that would add something to United that they don't currently have, because if a team was to press onto these players, currently Casemiro is just going to play the ball back into those areas. Whereas if you've all of a sudden got a player who can roll a player there and have a real strong progressive carry and get away from an attacker who's pressing you, then you get the extra man in that attack, and all of a sudden you can be 5v5 going the other way.
Very easy to understand indeed, Dino. But look, finally, one quick one on his track record, right? He joined Inter Milan at 17 years of age. Didn't really work. He played 16 games. Rafa Benitez tried to hijack him for Newcastle during that period, but he chose Italy and his career stalled. Is that worrying for you?
No, not for me. He was a kid in a very tactically difficult league at that point under a manager in Inzaghi who's notorious for ignoring youth and preferring experience. He didn't fail, he just didn't play enough. So he spent the last 3 years grinding it out on loan in France and now Spain, and he's now proved his level. Battle hardened and ready now for a bigger stage.
So Sevilla midfielder Lucien Agoume fits United's system perfectly, so now it's time to feed the facts and figures to SunSport's fee finder to discover what it will cost for United to land him in January.
Agoume is 23 on just £37,000 a week with 2.5 years left on his current deal, which is said to include a £35 million release clause.
Rodri and Zubimendi are two recent similar transfers and both cost more than £50 million.
Sevilla need to sell assets and recently reported more than £67 million in losses.
Yep, but Inter Milan have secured a 50% sell-on clause on this deal in return for the tiny £3.4 million transfer fee they accepted, which means Sevilla will need to drive his price up to make a sale worthwhile for them.
Yep, he's only missed a handful of games, injured or suspended since joining, with no concerns beyond the history of minor hamstring injuries.
And his agent, Jibril Niang of ND Sports Management, handles Arsenal's William Saliba, so he knows how to do big deals. But the Gunners have been monitoring Agoume as well and are also considering a January switch.
And don't forget the Man United tax.
Yeah, of course. How could we forget the Man United tax? Okay, so taking all of that into consideration, SunSport's fee finder expects that a £35 million fee, a 4-year contract worth £80,000 a week would be enough to tempt Sevilla into selling and to tempt Agoume to sign on the dotted line at Old Trafford. Doable, Dino?
Definitely, and it would save United a fortune on that Baleba fee.
Well, there you have it. He fits Amorim's system perfectly, plus he's got better stats than Casemiro and Carlos Baleba, and he's available for a third of the price of the Brighton man. That is why Lucien Agoume is the essential transfer Manchester United must make in January. Thanks very much for watching. Please like this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of this video and of course who you'd like us to profile next time. This is your Christmas special teaser episode, and we'll be back from January the 7th, releasing an episode of Essential Football Transfers every week from then until the window slams shut on February the 2nd. Do join us.